The International Criminal Court is seeking arrest warrants for Taliban officials citing the violation of women's rights in Afghanistan. A statement by the ICC prosecutor reads, quote, "After a thorough investigation and on the basis of evidence collected, my office submits that there are reasonable grounds to believe that the supreme leader of the Taliban, Haibatullah Akhund Zada, and the Chief Justice of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, Abdul Hakim Haqqani, bear criminal responsibility for the crime against humanity of persecution on gender grounds under Article 7(1)(h) of the Rome Statute." Now, it goes on to state that, quote, "These two men are or were criminally responsible for persecuting Afghan girls and women, as well as persons whom the Taliban perceived as not conforming with their ideological expectations of gender identity or expression, and persons whom the Taliban perceived as allies of girls and women." So, by allies of girls and women, it's actually casting the net quite wide. Now, the Taliban's response has been to state that the Rome Statute is legally void, adding that the Taliban or Afghanistan has no obligation to the International Criminal Court. In response, Nasir Ahmad Andisha, Afghanistan's representative to the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, has also dismissed the Taliban's announcement regarding their withdrawal from the Rome Statute, stating that the group lacks the legal authority to make such a decision. He also goes on to quote their misunderstanding of the process of withdrawal and the fact that just withdrawing does not negate any crimes that were committed prior to the withdrawal. There are a couple points of analysis here. I'll break them down, then I'll provide my own thoughts. The first is that this is largely a symbolic gesture. Taliban officials are unlikely to travel to any countries where they may actually be arrested. Pakistan, where the majority of the Taliban's leadership actually resides, will not carry out any arrest issued by the International Criminal Court. Pakistan is the largest supporter of the Taliban in the world. They arm, train, fund, and provide sanctuaries for militant groups and terrorist organizations alike, like Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, among others in the region. Ultimately, these arrest warrants will change nothing on the ground in Afghanistan because short of an invasion, there's really no way of actually carrying them out. Pakistan is and has always been a rogue state. The second, and I think more important impact of these arrests and what they actually mean is that this will continue to underline the illegitimacy of Taliban rule in Afghanistan and make it much more difficult for countries to form any sort of open or political alliances with the Taliban. It continues to isolate them on a world stage. As an Afghan, I think it's important that the Taliban's rule never becomes legitimized in Afghanistan because the Taliban's rule is ultimately a colonialist rule. The majority of the Taliban are nationally Pakistani. The Taliban operate as an extension of the Pakistani military. For any sort of meaningful change and peace to occur in Afghanistan, the United Nations and the International Criminal Court need to both recognize and openly acknowledge Pakistan's role in Afghanistan, Pakistan's support for the Taliban and Al-Qaeda and other militant groups, and they need to place sanctions on Pakistan as well as issue arrest warrants for Pakistani officials.